What is going on, Ive Warriors? So today we're going to talk about 5 tricks that you can use to ensure that you don't fall off of intermittent fasting. I know this is an issue not just with intermittent fasting, but with a lot of other diets, with many diets, because there's a certain level of willpower that's applied to doing anything that causes you to restrict something else. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it to hopefully help you stay on the path. Without any further ado, let's jump into it. First thing that you want to do to help you stick to intermittent fasting and not fall off is to always have a non-caloric drink on hand. Now, not specifically on your hand, but you know what I mean. Just have it in the home. Have it somewhere where you could access the drink, even though you're on the couch. You could get up and go and get a non-caloric drink. Now, water is always good, and it's always a good back pocket kind of tool for intermittent fasting, but spice it up as well. Let yourself feel a satisfaction of variety. Have some seltzer water, have some naturally essenced flavored seltzer water, which is natural flavors where they just burn the fruits under the water, and then the vapors go into the water, and then they carbonate that water. So it's not even artificial, sweetener or anything like that. It's literally just water vapor going into water, right? So have different types of things that you can drink, that you can use. So whenever you feel hungry, you substitute what your hunger for something that you drink. Because sometimes when it comes to these kind of things, we're not actually even hungry. We're simply just thirsty, but we confuse the two many times, especially when we're doing things that trigger eating. Like watching TV is a big trigger for a lot of people, especially in the United States. That type of stuff triggers eating. So make sure that you always have a non-caloric drink on hand so it can suppress those feelings, or you could just check to see if you were really thirsty to begin with. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Have exception days. Because I understand that, we're human and we're not always going to stick to the regimen, right? There's life happens. So have your exception days, but here's the thing. Here's a good trick. Have your exception days planned out. Pick an exception day. If it's once every 3 weeks or once every 2 weeks, pick an exception day, and also make sure not to have your exception days be so consecutive. So the more consecutive it is, the more you'll fall off of the regimen. So if you have it for 2 days in a row, it becomes much more difficult to bounce back. If it's 3 days, even more difficult. 4, even worse. 5, even worse. The more consecutive your exception days are, the harder it is to bounce back. And the more of them they are in a short amount of time, the more difficult it is to bounce back as well. So if you have one on Sunday, but not Monday, and not Tuesday, but then you got it on Wednesday, and then Thursday, but not Friday, but then a Saturday, it's going to be tough. So you want to have consistency, but I do understand the importance of an exception day, which is a day where you don't do the fasting regimen, but just make sure that it's planned, because if there is no rhyme or reason, your brain is a powerful tool. It's going to look at this and say, well, there was no reason for you not to do the thing that you were doing for so long. So why do it tomorrow? And why do it the next day? Why do it any day? Why don't you know what? Let me increase your ghrelin a little bit, make you a little bit hungrier than you were yesterday. I'm sure you'll eat today as well. But if you have it planned, your brain kind of understands what's going on, right? You set a date and then you do it that date, so it feels purposeful. It doesn't feel accidental, and that's much more geared toward keeping you on the right path, because it feels like it was constructed as opposed to you just fell right into it. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Eat foods, and I have to stress this, eat food that you enjoy. Please eat foods that you enjoy, because if you don't, you are adding layers upon layers of willpower. You are not just adding a layer of willpower regarding food, the actual food that you normally eat, you're also adding willpower because of your restraint from eating after a certain period of time due to intermittent fasting. So you have so many things that you're battling, so many different things. You might not feel so satisfied at the end of the day. And over time, even if you hold strong, it can affect you. So you want to make sure you eat foods that you enjoy. Figure out what is nutritious, what has what's nutritionally dense, what has all of the different macronutrients in their right proportions, like having more protein, having your fats, your carbs. Make sure you have that, but make sure it's foods that you enjoy eating, right? Even if it's new food, because you're trying to make sure it has all the nutrition in there. Still try to figure out what that balance is between having all of that stuff and things that you find flavorful, things that you find enjoyable, things that you look forward to when you eat. This is important. You don't want to have layers of willpower that you have to fight through. You just want to have one or two things, not so many. So if you can reduce that and eliminate that by simply managing the nutritional intake and ensuring that you're getting what you like and what you look forward to while doing intermittent fasting, you'll be in a much better place, and it's going to be much more difficult for you to be looking elsewhere to break your intermittent fasting regimen. Let's go ahead and move on to number 4, exercise. Now, I've talked about this before, and it's a habit forming tool called action chunking. And action chunking just simply means that you're doing multiple things habitually, but each of those things together, each of those things separately is one habit, but together you form this habit chain that makes each individual thing that you do much more stronger and much easier for you to stick to. For example, if you do exercise and you do intermittent fasting, what ends up happening is they start to motivate each other, right? So you're exercising and you feel good about your exercise because you're eating correctly, because you're eating in a way where you're allowing yourself to lose weight, and you know that that's coming from the intermittent fasting regimen. And then you're doing intermittent fasting and you're like, I feel good about this because I'm exercising and I'm helping this process. I'm fortifying my muscles. I'm building muscles. I'm helping rev my metabolism through working out, through eating. And I want to stick to this intermittent fasting thing because I exercise. And when you exercise, you want to stick to this exercise because you do intermittent fasting. So action chunking is an important tool, and I highly recommend that people use that tool. Not a lot of people talk about this. This is not talked about much, but studies have shown that when you link together multiple different habits on a daily basis, it makes each individual habit much stronger. So try it out. If you aren't exercising, I highly recommend to add exercise to your day. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the final one, number 5. Setting goals and monitoring those goals. So if you set goals, there's a North Star. If you don't have any goals, there's no North Star. And if there's no North Star, there's nothing. You almost feel like you're on this endless road. You almost feel like you're on this path that will never end. But you want to set a goal. You want something. You want it to feel like there's a finite moment, like there's somewhere that you're going with this. Even if when you finally get there, you still do intermittent fasting, which is highly recommended because you still want to do this thing to keep you at the weight that you've reached. But if you just do intermittent fasting, but you don't really have anything planned, like, yeah, you want to lose weight, but how much weight do you want to lose? Yeah, you want to, lose some sizes, but how many sizes do you want to lose? That stuff has to be goal oriented, and it has to be monitored, right? So you want to say, okay, well, I was this pant size before. When I felt my best, I want to get back to this pant size. I was this shirt size when I felt my best. I want to get back to that shirt size. Take pictures every Friday, look in the mirror, do different things to see if there's a difference. If you're looking at your weight, I don't necessarily fully recommend just using the scale, but try to use the scale every 2 or 3 weeks to monitor where you are, so you see that there's an improvement there, so you see that things are happening with your intermittent fasting regimen. It helps you. It gives you a guide or a point of interest that you're trying to hit. If you don't have that, if you're just vaguely saying you want to lose weight or vaguely saying you want to lose sizes or get down in sizes, you're not going to really have anything concrete that's going to, when things are a little bit more difficult in moments where you may break your intermittent fasting regimen, you may not have a strong enough mental argument to say, well, now, I've been on this path, I've gotten this far, let me keep going. No, you'll just be like, oh, I never paid attention to it, so you know what? It's fine. I'll break it today and maybe even tomorrow. And that's the downward spiral. Hopefully this video has helped you guys. And of course, as always, this is Edward from Fledge Fitness. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much, guys.